I'm moving to a different city without knowing anyone, without knowing what I'm actually doing, without knowing whether or not it's the right move. So please guide me, please support me, please don't leave me hanging. Please lead me to my home. Please, God, please. Welcome to the third and last part of this mini series of moving/living abroad and making new friends, making money, and finding yourself a new beautiful home overseas, which is definitely not always easy, but so worth it once done. And in this video, I'm gonna talk about finding yourself a new home, and I'm gonna share my experience, which hopefully holds a lot of value for you too. First off, before we even get into it, listen to your gut or whatever it is for you that allows you to speak or get in contact with your intuition, because your intuition knows. For me, it's always an inner knowing that I have or I don't, but when I do and I listen to it, it never ever fails me. And I want to share something with you that actually still makes me feel chills, and every time I think of it reminds me of that there is something bigger than us and that there is a higher plan for us that we just need to follow or can rely on and trust. And the way I see it today is that this higher force, this energy, basically is future me showing itself to current me through certain emotions, through feelings, through experiences, through inner knowings. And maybe for you it's a gut feeling. So when you're about to move overseas or you're already living abroad and you're now trying to find yourself a new beautiful home that suits your soul, your heart, and what it is you need and want for yourself to truly feel safe where you live and nourished and thriving, then this is definitely my number one tip. Because every time I listened to it, I actually got to live in the most beautiful places, the most beautiful apartments, and had the most amazing time of my life. With the most recent being to move to Sydney and having had this feeling of wanting to look for places in Bronte, which didn't make sense at all for the longest time because I had always lived in Balmain or Bondi. And while Bondi is right next to Bronte, I had never connected anything to Bronte. However, before I even moved to Sydney, I talked to my friend who I reached out to in order to ask if it was okay for me to stay with her and her partner for some time until I would find myself a place of my own. She agreed and we got on a phone call to talk about all the logistics and everything. And she said to me, "Yeah, we actually moved to Bronte, did you know?" And I was like, "No, I didn't, but it all makes perfect sense now." And to this day, I am still in awe of this moment because it's been one of those moments where you just know that you were divinely guided there, right? A year later, when I felt like my Sydney chapter had come to an end and it was time for me to explore something new, a different city, and didn't really know where else to go though, I remember laying in bed, literally just randomly scrolling through my phone, and all of a sudden having this thought of, you should go to Melbourne. And I did not know at the time whether or not this was my intuition. I just felt like, where did that come from? Because I wasn't thinking of any of this at all in that moment, right? Again, I was just randomly scrolling through my phone, randomly had this thought pop up, which I don't think was so random at all looking back now, because Melbourne actually turned out to be my home, a home I never had. I'm still blown away by how it actually entered my life and found a way to realize itself, because never in my life had I thought about moving to Melbourne and had I thought that this could actually be my place, because I had always been a Sydney girl. And this brings me to number 2. Stay open and try out new things, different things, because sometimes it's what you never planned and what you never thought was actually for you that turns out to be exactly right for you. But let's go back a little, because you might or might not already have a feeling for where you want to live in the country you are moving to or are already in. For me, however, I always had a feeling and always had certain areas, certain suburbs that I felt drawn to, and I could so trust that feeling, because that feeling, it was like kind of like my future self talking to me, letting me know, yeah, you would like these areas, trust me. So I would just listen to it. And if you do have that, I can only recommend you doing the same, because it won't let you down. There is a reason why you feel drawn to certain places, environments, people even. But also get really clear on what it is you want and need in your new home. When I moved to Sydney, I didn't really care too much about the apartment I was gonna live in, because I knew it was a very outdoorsy lifestyle and I really just needed a place to stay. I was fine with living with my friends for a year, sharing an apartment with 3 people and a big dog, and having to share a bathroom also. I was fine with that until I wasn't anymore. And when I wasn't, and when I was thinking about potentially moving somewhere else but not really sure where to yet, I started writing down what I needed and wanted. And for me at the time, that was a much bigger space, bright, modern apartment that I would only share with one extra person. And I wanted my own bathroom, I wanted a garage, and I wanted to live in a nice, beautiful environment that would actually nourish my soul. Close to work, great area, you name it. I had actually planned, and that brings me to number 4. When you are about to move and you already have friends overseas, try to get to stay with them for 2-3 weeks if possible, to then arrange as many inspections as possible during that time and actually get a feel for the different environments, the different suburbs, the energies there, because it's such a difference and it will help you so much. I did not have to do that when I moved to Australia, not that time at least, but I wanted to when I was about to move to Melbourne last year, and actually had planned on staying with a friend for the first 2-3 weeks because exactly of that. However, 5 days prior to my move, he actually cancelled on me. And there I was, not having an apartment in the city I was about to move to, still being in my hometown in Germany that I had been to for a visit in between moves, only being 5 days away from getting on the plane back to Sydney to go pick up my car and drive all the way down to nowhere. A big fat question mark, because all of a sudden I did not have a place to stay. And I could not afford an Airbnb for too long. So that was not really an option. And this brings me to number 5. If you want to actively find a new home, get onto the platforms. Google Housing Melbourne, for example. Flatmates is an amazing platform to find your potential future home. And to continue my story of my move to Melbourne, when all this craziness happened only shortly before my move, I got onto flatmates.com and would literally message anyone who could be a potential match. Messaging landlords and potential roomies that weren't 100% a match, but would be okay for some time. I remember having an online inspection with a girl who lived so far away from where I wanted to be and from the city, and like in an area that I didn't even like. But her being nice and me thinking, you know what, like you don't have to stay there forever. Like just give it, 1, 2, 3 months at least, for you to have something, and then you can go from there. But luckily, and this was actually my last attempt to find myself a new home, I sat down with myself the night before my very last online inspection, praying to God, saying something like, don't leave me hanging here. Please, I'm doing it. I'm trusting and following my inner knowing. I'm moving to a different city without knowing anyone, without knowing what I'm actually doing, without knowing whether or not it's the right move. So please guide me. Please support me. Please lead me to my home. Please, God, please. And I would just give it up. Literally give it up to God and be like, I've put in the work. I've had so many online inspections. I have tried to keep up my trust and my faith regardless of this messy situation right now. Now I need you to step in. Please show me that you are there and that you've got my back. The next day, I had this very last online inspection, talked to my landlord for about an hour on the phone. Yeah, him showing me the apartment and me being in complete awe of how perfect this apartment in the environment it was located in would be for me. And him saying, you know what, I actually want you here. I am willing to also trust you and to agree on having you here and meeting you once you're in Melbourne in a couple of days. He sent me the address, and 5 days later, I remember arriving at my new home. It's actually making me emotional. And feeling home and feeling this feeling that I had never experienced before. And feeling so grateful in that very moment for having trusted my inner knowing and having acted on it. And arriving at this apartment, opening, because he had left me the keys behind, right? Opening the garage door, driving down, getting into the elevator with my suitcases, getting up to the apartment, opening the door, and just being overwhelmed by God's work. I can't say it any differently, because this was God's work. This was my prayer being answered, and this was my ideal home. And I actually stayed there for an entire year until I decided to go back to Europe, and I had the most amazing landlord, and it all worked out perfectly fine. But it only could because I trusted. I had a lot of faith, and I met someone who also put faith into me, who also decided to trust me and gave me a chance. And this now brings me to point number 6, I think it is. How you present yourself matters. Never underestimate how important your looks are. And I don't mean it in a superficial way. I mean it in a very also spiritual, energetic kind of way, where you've probably noticed that people who take good care of themselves, who are well groomed, who wear nice clothes, who have their hair and makeup done, for example, and who present themselves in a very grounded, stable, secure, confident way, are more likely getting your trust and your respect, your attention, your appreciation, and you automatically give them certain traits because you put them in a box. It's just what we do as humans. You give them certain traits you think this person must have in order to be this, in order to be who they present themselves as. The way I present myself always has been so important for me because I know what it does to people, and I know how it actually helps me in my life, how it helps me move forward, how it helps me make the right connections, how it opens me doors that otherwise wouldn't, because it says something about me. And for me, that means dressing nicely, doing my hair and makeup, being well groomed, like doing my nails. Like, it's little things, right? Actually, I have to do my nails again. This is already driving me crazy because I need to remove the skin, the extra skin here. Anyway, these are the little things many don't really care too much about, but I do. I notice these things in others. So therefore, I always make sure that I have nice nails, for example, too, no dirt underneath my nails or stuff, ugh, gross. But really am presenting myself as the person I am, the woman I am, and want to be seen as someone who is reliable, someone who is tidy, who is clean, who is responsible, who is communicative, who is open, and who is easy to talk to. It's actually really, really easy building these kind of very important connections in life with other people that you need something from. And I actually built a really nice connection with my landlord, a very respectable one. If you only take away one thing today, let it be this. Always be kind, always be reliable, always be the kind of person you would want to have in your home if you were to rent it out to someone else, and present yourself as such. Be what you need to trust and respect another. And if you do that, you can't fail. And you will for sure make a great connection to a landlord and with your roomies, and watch what it does to your life. I hope you liked this mini series. I hope you liked the video today. If you did, leave it a like. Feel free to subscribe, share it with your friends, with someone you feel needs to hear and see this today. Thank you so much for being here today with me. See you in the next one. The Queen of Dreams.